Welcome back to Beer Fueled Fantasy Football. It is time for Week 10. So nice of you guys to be joining us on a Friday night if you're jumping onto the YouTube channel and catching the live stream. I hope you guys are able to do that. We got the whole crew here today. I'm joined by Dan Thury.
Hi, Thury BFF. What's up, guys?
And Christopher Hopper, who passed up hockey tickets to join you guys tonight, so thank him.
Hot BFF spelled backwards is Fubupo.
With two ha.
With two P's.
With two ha.
Can't forget the two P's. Thank you so much for tuning in to guys' night. I am at Nick Sparts. We are Beer Fueled Fantasy Football. You can follow us on Twitter at BeerFueledFF. That's also where you can find Can Art at Instagram and Untapped for all beer reviews. If you do want to catch the live stream and ask us questions during the Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or even Sunday morning episodes, that is Beer Fueled Fantasy Football. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button for us there. As a reminder, we do all these shows between about 5:45 and 6:15 Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and it's 10:30 in the morning, Sunday mornings, rest of the season, or at least through Week 16. We don't do Week 17.
Fuck that shit.
All right, a couple ways you guys can help us out before we get started previewing all the games for this week. If you can drop any likes and comments on our videos, that helps boost visibility for those. Dropping reviews on iTunes helps boost our rating there as well. You want to hit us up and do any financial support, you can send us beer from other parts of the country so we can review it on the show. DM me at BeerFueledFF or email beerfueledfantasy@gmail.com if you want our address to send that to. Or if you're interested in picking up any Beer Fueled Fantasy merch, you can show how Beer Fueled you are. Or if you're interested in supporting us on Patreon to buy us beer directly. All three are appreciated, and we would appreciate any help you guys can give us to help run the show. But before we preview all the games, get through all the news and all the injuries, we got to let you know what is fueling us today.
Beer Fuel.
Then afterwards, you have a question.
Perfect. Let me quick get through the review
Exactly.
preview first. We got Parker's Porter from Triptych Brewing on. This is their third time on the show. That doesn't sound right.
I checked it.
I have
We
not.
don't do a lot of triptych.
No, we do a lot of Triptych individually on our own, and
Yes.
we've visited them several times, but we do not have them
We've
on
had
the
them
show a lot
twice.
Okay.
because they're local.
I also haven't updated the beer list in a while, so it's quite possible we may be missing a third or fourth.
At this point, it's fine.
Last episode was 126, Draft Day Part 3, back in the spring. We're almost up to 200, by the way. This is episode 193.
Oh, shit.
Man.
Parker's Porter is a 6% ABV porter, brewed with lots of chocolate malt, a touch of black barley, and a pinch of crystal malt. And on the front, it says a porter.
Yeah. I thought it said crystal meth as a joke.
Yeah,
I'm
I
like,
did not think you were going to crystal malt. I thought that you were about to say a touch of crystal meth.
I'm reading what is on the page.
I know, because it's on their website. I mean,
it's
ooh.
champagne. I wouldn't be surprised.
It would fit the town. But it's a porter brewed for the best dog who ever lived, a really good boy.
Yes.
Maybe the second best dog
They
who
do
ever
this
lived.
every year as what they want to do with their porters for their yearly porter.
Yeah, that's nice, and it sounds delicious. I wish I could have one.
I know.
Some of us buy ahead of time.
I'll bring you some on Sunday.
Okay. I'll be around somewhere.
All right, before we get to news, we have a question.
We have a couple questions
I'm
from.
sorry. I guess what I'm drinking just doesn't matter.
Oh, I
What-
forgot that you have your own
What a-
thing.
what a
Hopper, what are
dick.
you featuring?
I have to. I've got a 2017 release of Goose Island's Bourbon County that I've been sitting on and aging for a year.
It is an excellent. I'm trying to remember which one. Yes, 17 was a good release. 16 I wasn't as big a fan of.
Yep. So, and it's been aged for a year. So I had 3 bottles of this. I bought one right after I got it, one kind of in the middle. So this is my last one. We'll see how it is.
I think I may have one left still here too. I forgot if I drank all 3
I'll
or just
probably
2.
pick up whatever this year's
I will
release
require
is.
some 2018 from you.
Yeah, I will. I'll get you guys both probably. Anyways,
Cool.
moving
All right.
on to questions. This is from Richard Lopez. He's got 2 of them. He said he's got a bunch of questions, so I'm sure he'll space them out for us. Maurice Harris or Randall Cobb, half-point PPR?
Maurice Harris.
Yeah.
Maurice Harris.
All over him this week.
I like Harris, and Cobb may not even go.
And
Yep.
I don't think it matters. I think he's officially fading out of that target share. Next question, Superflex League, Josh McCown, Amari Cooper, Calvin Ridley, or Duke Johnson.
So this is for your super flex position.
Yes.
I'll take the quarterback. I'll go Josh McCown.
Josh McCown. Why not?
God, it seems
no
so
one chance to
gross.
start
'Cause
him
I
this year.
If I'm-
hate him this
If I'm
week.
taking a second pick, I'm going with Duke Johnson.
I may go Duke and just in general. I know you should always flex the quarterback when you can, but this game just screams, don't do it.
A bad quarterback day is a good running back day.
That's true.
Yeah, I mean, Duke Johnson probably has to score to outscore Josh McCown.
Yep.
He might do that, but
Or Josh McCown has to throw like 7 interceptions.
possibly.
This game is going to be bad. More on that game later. That's all the questions we got for now.
All right.
Keep them coming, guys.
Then let's go ahead and talk some news.
News.
Starting us off, as if the Pittsburgh running back situation was not dramatic enough already, NFL Network's Ian Rappaport reports James Conner was placed in the concussion protocol, with Le'Veon Bell expected back next Tuesday.
He's got 10 days to get out of this. He'll be
He'll
fine.
be all right.
He survived cancer. He can survive a concussion.
Well, we are a dark show, so yes, you can survive cancer. You can survive a concussion.
It's always my reaction to concussions, and maybe I underreact to them a little bit, but the majority of players that are concussed come back on a normal week, especially when they don't have a long-standing history of them, which Connor does not yet. And it's a long week.
All right, so who is the starter when they come back, considering that he may miss some practice next week?
James Conner, because even if Le'Veon Bell comes back, I don't think he even suits up for Week 11. He may not.
All right.
He may not be in game shape, and they may need him to be ready.
Le'Veon Bell's going to have a hell of a time getting bell cow work, pardon the pun.
Yes.
All right, we're getting to that time of year where people are starting to return from an injured reserve. Up first, we've got Rex Burkhead with his neck injury, return to practice Thursday, opening his 21-day window to return.
And it's a clusterfuck again in New England.
When he returns. I'm fine with James White still. It'll hurt him a little bit, but...
No, I am too. Sonny Michel's back this week, isn't he?
Yeah.
Questionable.
Yeah,
I think
he'll
it
be
hurts
back.
Michelle far more, obviously, than James White. I think White's role is secure.
And he's been so good at it.
And he's been, I don't see how they can get, you may see more dual back work.
Well, one clusterfuck grows, another disappears. The Colts got rid of running back Robert Turbin to make that backfield a little less murky.
And that's the last time we mentioned Robert Turbin on this show.
Hopefully.
It also might be the first time we've mentioned Robert Durbin on this show.
That is not true, I know, but...
Well, recently, I mean, in any reviews, previews, whatever, Robert Turbin has not come up. And Jordan Wilkins is a forgotten guy, too. It's all Naeem Hines and Marlon Mack.
NFL Network's Tom Pelissero, I believe it's pronounced.
Yeah, sounds right.
Reports Des Bryant left Friday's practice with what the Saints fear could be a torn Achilles. MRI is to come.
It's been confirmed, I believe, already.
The test for an Achilles tear is almost 100% accurate, just like feeling it. So he's torn his Achilles.
Yeah, he's done.
He's done for the year. This might be a career ender.
That was fun while it lasted.
Yeah,
that was a fun 3 days.
That's a good 36 hour.
Sean missed his window.
Yeah, right. The 2 days. Actually,
right.
next question: whose window was longer to sell, Derrick Henry or Des Bryant?
Derrick Henry's was longer.
Derrick Henry, yeah.
It's more of a shot at
There
Derrick Henry.
There were
'cause
so
it's fun to
many.
do.
There were so many opportunities to
That's
sell
what I'm
Derrick
saying.
Henry.
So there's been reports about them potentially bringing in Brandon Marshall, who also tested with them beforehand. So and apparently had a good tryout. So they may not be done. They may want to bring in another veteran just in case.
I mean,
Brandon Marshall and Des Bryant are the epitome of the Spider-Man meme.
Yes, they are.
Brandon Marshall's just the older,
And then I
grayer
saw,
spider.
and then I saw a joke they should just bring back Marquise Colston, who's just a year older than these guys.
You know what? You might as well.
Fuck it.
All right, and this on a similar note, it's been just a bad day for the Saints. They placed Cameron Meredith on injured reserve with a knee injury. He's done for the year.
More Austin Carr.
He has not been right at all.
No, he hasn't. The
All season.
hype on him was in the wrong place.
I don't think he was all the way back.
Yeah, he may have been trying to push it.
I think it was in the right place. It's just he wasn't ready.
Well, that's what he meant by not in the right
that's
place.
what
I know,
meant
but
by
I'm
all the way
saying,
back.
yeah.
Not the fit, the injury.
And then continuing the people possibly coming back from injured reserve, and he may be active this week. Trey Quinn returned to practice Thursday.
Show
and
favorite.
And he may be playing.
And
Oh,
nobody
yeah.
else there. Besides
Yep.
Maurice Hurts.
Mr. Irrelevant.
He was playing in preseason before he got hurt.
Yep, he got hurt, I believe, week 1, didn't he?
Or week 1. He was still playing, so.
Yeah. No, this makes me excited. We'll see what happens. Also, you want to talk about, and you can write it down, the Joe Flacco situation.
That did come later.
As a prelude to maybe picking up Lamar Jackson, we've been talking about this. So, Joe Flacco has a hip injury because, Ravens and hip injuries can't seem to escape themselves.
Damn you, Pitta.
It doesn't. There's no real reports out there about how severe the hip injury is. It's just this is their bye week. The offense has been in the lull the last few weeks. The Ravens may be using this as a way to transition into Lamar Jackson, who's been getting heavy first team reps this week, and should see even heavier ones next week. The super flex and 2 QB leagues go out and pick up Lamar Jackson. For some reason, he's not rostered. And if you have the bench spots, go out and pick him up. Not a great quarterback in terms of throwing it, but as we've seen from just these mediocre quarterbacks before, he's got high rushing floor potentially, and that's what you need for these fantasy quarterbacks.
All right, Alex commented as well before we transition over to game recaps. Most meaningless trade ever. Someone traded Cam Meredith for Dez in a dynasty league.
At least Dez has a chance to maybe come back.
You mean Meredith?
You mean Meredith?
I don't fucking know.
And then Richard Lopez chimes in, Saints should just bring Calvin Johnson. And then is Trey Quinn a dynasty ad? Would you cut Marquise Lee for him?
Ooh. No, because I think Lee is still the one there. And Quinn's quarterback situation with Smith doesn't seem good, per se. But if there's room on your roster, there's might be somebody else on there. He's not picked up in a redraft. I wouldn't do it right now.
I mean, and also in Dynasty, you probably have Lee stashed in an IR spot, don't you?
I would hope so. I hope your league has IR slots.
Yeah, I would also, because you're not going to drop somebody from your IR spot. That's a future you problem. Just get them on the roster.
Yeah. Future Nick has a lot of IR problems.
Yep, that's a July you problem.
That's
or
right.
So.
All right.
And a lot can change.
Well, that's all we've got for news today. Let's go ahead and talk about what the hell happened on Thursday night, which is an apt description.
What the fuck did happen?
What the hell happened?
Steelers win this one 52-21. As Le'Veon Bell tweeted out during the game, the Panthers need to pass the sticks because they got whooped.
Yeah, we'll start with these Panthers. Cam finished 23-29, 193, 2 passing touchdowns, 1 interception, and only 10 rushing yards. I think he only had 2 attempts as well. Cam was pressured all night. The offensive line was horrible, and he took a beating because of it. But he still didn't kill you. 2 passing touchdowns, only 1 pick. You would like more rushing yards, but if this game was anywhere close to this, you could have actually had a decent game. Gets Detroit, Seattle, and Tampa Bay up next. I believe Tampa Bay and Detroit are on the road. Not terrible matchups coming up. They're actually all pretty good, minus Seattle, who's been very good against quarterbacks this year. We'll get to CMC, the only viable fantasy option, or the only viable fantasy person from this game for the Panthers. Finished with 19 total touches, 138 total yards, 3 total touchdowns. That makes 7 touchdowns in his last 3 games. He only had 1 for his first 6 games, and now the touchdowns are matching the volume in which we saw to begin the season. Again, good matchups coming up as well, so he's obviously a must start no matter what. But this is going to look very good for your fantasy playoffs coming up. And then I said the wide receivers could struggle in this one, and I wasn't wrong here. Morton Funches led all receivers and targets with 5. Funches finished 3 for 32. He had a couple garbage time. He was really killing you until that time. Moore finished with just 4 catches for 20 yards. Greg Olsen led all pass catches with 6 targets, but he only turned that into 4 for 40. It's going to get better for them. This game just went lopsided pretty quickly for them. And then just a side note for DJ Moore here. He's played equal snaps to Devin Funches, and this is his 2nd straight game of being nearly the 90% snap share mark. You need to go out there and pick him up on your roster. Things should get better for him and the rest of these guys going forward.
They have some really nice matchups down the stretch. I thought this was one of them, but I don't know what the hell happened.
Yeah, Pittsburgh's defense has been stepping it up, but I think this is
the pass rush especially.
Yeah.
And Norv Turner was back to his old 7-step drop bullshit.
So this is it's just a weird game for them. Any questions on the Panthers?
No, I'm just very disappointed outside of CMC.
Yeah. All right, moving on to Pittsburgh. Big Ben was just Big Ben at home. 22-25, 320 yards, 5 passing touchdowns, no interceptions, 27 rushing yards, and a perfect passer rating. He hasn't really done a game like this all season, and he's typically known to have at least one of them. So here's that game for this year. Next matchups are at Jacksonville, at Denver, then at home against the Chargers. Not great, especially the next two matchups. He's has been very well documented. He's not very good on the road. So just keep that in mind about it. Just an incredible game from. And then as mentioned, James Conard, who concussed himself. Before doing that, he gave you a decent game, 13 for 65, 1 touchdown on the ground, then had an 8-yard reception to kind of clear up that. They wasn't terrible. He should have more than enough time to rest up before his next game and be out of protocol.
Hoping so.
But do keep in mind with Le'Veon Bell is in Pittsburgh. He has 4 more days to decide if he wants to return to the team this season and be ruled eligible to play this year. So that probably will happen, but we'll see. As for the receivers here, Juju started off with the 75-yard touchdown catch. Was quiet elsewise afterwards, though. 3 for 90, 1 touchdown on 5 targets. Brown had another big play for a touchdown. He finished 6 for 96 and a touchdown on 6 targets. And then Vance McDonald decided to reward the players that trained him, like I said you should. 4 for 44 and 1 touchdown on 4 targets. It was a little dicey until it happened, but hey, they got there. And even Jesse James decided to get on the touchdown fun, and he caught his lone target for a touchdown. And Jalen Samuels did a thing, but we're not going to talk about it. If the Panthers could have kept up with this game a little bit more, there could have even been more for the passing game here. It's just the game got out of hand, and Big Ben was out on the sideline by mid-4th quarter.
He got you 30-plus. You're fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think the Juju or Brown stat lines changed from about early 3rd quarter on.
No, it became what it should have been.
I think they each had 1 catch in the 3rd, and that was about it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So at least they got you their big play touchdowns. Hopefully, maybe you play in the league with bonus for big plays, so they helped you a little bit more.
Real glad that they both got their big play touchdowns. As I'm playing live studio audience, who's running a double Steelers stack on me.
Well,
that actually has worked out pretty okay this year.
It's been well for if you played their defense for whatever reason, good job, because they got you 5 sacks and a pick 6.
That defense has been on the up and up the last few weeks, though. They're looking better and better.
I just didn't like this matchup.
Status.
I just didn't like this matchup for them, but yes, I do agree they are a decent streaming option, especially for next week.
They're trending in the right direction.
Yeah.
Next,
people in the business say
3 of the next 4.
Yeah, well, you got Denver, Seattle, Tampa Bay can be real hit or miss, but a lot of turnover chances there.
Wait, what? They don't play Seattle.
Oh, I'm talking about Pittsburgh.
Yeah, they don't play Seattle.
Oh, I'm sorry, that was the Panthers. My bad. Ron teams.
Steelers have Jaguars, Broncos.
There you go. Yes.
They play the Chargers, which would suck, and then they get the Raiders for 3 of the next 4.
Yeah.
Dan chiming in with fake news.
What else is new? Especially when we're talking about Pittsburgh players.
It's like I said, the West divisions play each other. There's no way the Steelers play the Seahawks this year.
I know.
They're playing the Seahawks.
They're playing the Seahawks. Then.
Goodell, make it happen.
Whether they know it or not.
All right. Anything else to add on that game?
No, that's it.
All right. Let's go ahead and talk about some guys who are going to be in or out this week. Starting off with players who are confirmed to be in that we've been missing or had some questions coming into the week. Leonard Fournette going to make his return for at least one half of football.
Hopefully for the whole game.
12 carries.
So, are we excited? Are we worried about the Hyde trade? What are we thinking?
More on that later.
I'm worried, honestly, about how much he's going to be used. I don't know that if he goes back to workhorse or not. They gave up tangible assets. So I think it's probably what Dan's going to say also. So I don't mean to steal his thunder. We'll wait for him later, but I'm worried.
Yeah, there is some real concern.
All right, and then at wide receiver, we get the return of Allen Robinson with no Darius Slay this week.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's going to be very feast or famine. We'll see.
So Hurricane, if you're listening, start Allen Robinson.
Yeah, I mean, more or less with the Bears against the Lions this week, feast or famine, it's going to depend on which Lions offense decides to show up on how fantasy relevant this game is going to be, because it could be really good or it could be really bad.
Yeah.
All right. And then less big names, but still of note, Quincy Enunwa is going to go. He's been pretty dinged up for the last couple weeks. He played last week, but it was in question He's confirmed he will play this week without any issue.
It's just him and Curse.
Kenny, hey, Herndon.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know.
Kenny Stills is back to 100%, and he will go.
More on him later.
And then Mohamed Sanu is going to play this week with the hip issue.
Woo.
Some guys who are out. Derek Anderson is still not over his concussion issue and will be missing another week. So it's either
the Bills' offense is just going to be absolutely terrible now.
Well, Josh
Peterman
Allen
or Matt Barkley.
Josh Allen is going to try to go.
There's no way. I don't see this happening.
They hit Nathan Peterman so much that they're going to throw Josh Allen out there.
They got Matt Barkley.
No.
Fuck it.
They said if Josh Allen can't go, the coach would not commit to Nathan Peterman being the starter.
I know, because they got
Matt Barkley.
Chris Thompson is going to miss again with the ankle.
Bibbs.
Darren Sproles re-injured the hamstring again.
It's like the fourth time this year. Has he played a game?
He played week one.
He played week one. When he had the most snaps for all running backs that week.
And we were all like, I guess pick up Darren Sproles. And he's like, nope, I'm done.
So fuck that shit.
For some reason, somehow, he was still hanging out on the back end of one of my rosters in one of my deeper leagues.
Did you just notice and be like, what are you still doing here?
Why haven't you retired yet?
Why are you still here?
I was looking at my roster to figure out who I wanted to drop to pick up an extra kicker so I didn't have to drop somebody, my normal kicker. And I was like, oh. Why are you here?
All right. AJ Green is going to miss this week with a foot, and he may miss more time.
Yep. It's going to be Tyler Boyd.
And no Josh Malone breakout because he's also missing with a hamstring.
Alex Erickson.
Not going to say John Ross.
CJ Who's your mama?
TJ Usmanzada.
I mean, it might be.
Cody Core.
They'll bring him back. Yes, yeah.
Auden Tate. They promoted him off the practice squad.
They'd be their backup tight end / big slot receiver.
All right, and for Check Back Sunday, reminder, 10:30 in the morning, we will have all the news on these players that has been released for you guys to keep you up to date. Sam Darnold is doubtful with a foot. It sounds like McCown is going to get the start.
Yay.
Josh Allen, elbow. Questionable.
I really hope he doesn't play. I want to see what they do.
Same here.
Chris Carson, hip and thigh, is going to be a game time decision, and it is a 3:00 kickoff.
Aren't those kind of like the same area?
There are different muscles, but
it's like toe and foot. Anyway,
you can injure both your toe and your foot.
Yeah, you can.
Mike Davis.
I mean, I'll hit you with a hammer in your toe and your heel and see how that feels.
Well, hit me with a hammer in my hip and my thigh, and we'll see if I can differentiate where the pain's at.
I mean, I'm okay with this experiment. Gio Bernard, knee, is questionable, but it is expected he'll suit up for the first time.
He's likely to play.
Kerryon Johnson, ankle.
Already a bad matchup.
Yeah, just don't do that anyway.
And Sony Michel, knee.
Also, don't do that either.
They have Titans, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's ugly.
Yeah, it's not good.
Sammy Watkins' foot was expected to be ruled out today, but got a limited session in, so he may actually go.
If he doesn't, I like Tyree Kilmore anyway, but
Chris Conley.
No.
Could bump him up.
I'm not buying into Chris Conley.
Jamison Crowder, ankle, may actually make a go of it this week, but Traquan's back, so who cares?
That's right. Fuck you, Crowder. You had your time to shine. Now it's time for Traquan.
Let's talk about disappointments. Jamison Crowder.
Shit.
Dan, that one's yours.
Sorry that he got hurt. Injuries happen.
Randall Cobb,
he
hamstring.
Wasn't doing anything when he was healthy.
He scored a touchdown.
A touchdown. In a week that you didn't even start him.
Nope. No, I did start him. I actually did start him that week. Woo.
And then Robbie Anderson is doubtful with the ankle again. Apparently re-injured it.
Yeah, he's not going to play. He hasn't played all week, I don't think.
That actually kind of sucks because Josh McCown has eyes for him.
He does. Hungry eyes.
Yeah.
Tight end David Njoku, ribs, knee.
Jeez.
Yikes.
I expect he'll go, but kind of banged up.
Set the valve if not.
Jeff Swaim, knee. I suspected he will not go.
Go gather season.
And then
let's go.
Yeah, it's a terrible matchup for tight ends
I know
anyway.
it is. I know.
Rob Gronkowski back is still limited practice.
And nobody
cares.
Is that where we're really at?
I mean, okay, if you're talking about guys who've also disappoint, based on draft capital and has played a lot this year.
No,
Gronk's up there.
I mean, I care about Gronk.
I know, I
mean,
care too,
If he
but-
doesn't go, it's just that doesn't boost anybody up. Dwayne Allen isn't going to do it.
No, he's definitely not.
Edelman and White get a slight boost from that. I can't put Gordon any higher.
Just not willing to do it.
It's hard for me to do.
All right, guys. Well, let's go ahead and preview all this week's games, dollar through all the injuries, and talk about what we expect from each of these matchups.
Weekly preview.
Kicking us off is Redskins going to Tampa to play the Buccaneers. 51.5 point over-under in this game, which has to be the highest that Washington's seen this season.
Yeah.
3-point favorites for the Buccaneers. Starting with the Redskins, Alex Smith is 28th in points per game at the quarterback position. So don't get overly excited for this matchup, but basically if you took the quarterback numbers against the Buccaneers right now, it would be the MVP over Mahomes and Breeze. 22 touchdowns, 1 pick.
First off, bet the Bucks in this one because that's only a 3-point spread and a 51.5 over-under against the Redskins.
That just wow.
If you
I'm a little
say
shocked
so.
by that line. Just slightly a little shocked.
No, I'm shocked by that too. I would think that the Buccaneers would be favored by a bit more in this one, especially with it being at home. And 51.5 still seems.
I mean, they basically.
I thought it was I thought it'd be more even. I mean, 3 point may seem even to most people. That's still a decent spread for a game that's a bit chalk like this.
It's in Tampa.
And 3 points is pretty much the difference between home and road.
Yeah, but basically, Alex Smith is my start of the week. He should give you a decent floor here because the Buccaneers are the worst team against opposing quarterbacks, and it's not even really that close. 1 interception on the season for them. It's going to be another missed game by Thompson that was confirmed after I wrote these notes. It looks like Peterson is in a plus matchup, but he's missing multiple blockers on the offensive line. So even though this is a good matchup against the Buccaneers defense, I like him as a mid RB2 at best, just based on
tell
volume.
me the Washington offensive line is banged up.
It took longer this
that
season.
shit never happens.
It took longer this season, but we're back to where we were last year.
I like Bibbs as a deep flex play.
I gotta be real desperate.
Well, he's the pass catcher there, and the Bucks aren't very good against pass catching backs either.
That's true.
But the Bucks aren't very good against anything.
Yeah, exactly.
This is what happens when a defense loses a superstar like Chris Conte.
Buccaneers have allowed 1 opposing wide receiver to score 16 plus fantasy points in every single matchup at minimum. So this week I actually like Harris a lot, who functions as more of a high volume possession receiver. I'd actually start him as an upside wide receiver 3 this week. Doxson isn't even bad as an upside wide receiver 4 with some as kind of their primary red zone threat this week. And then if you're super desperate in a crazy deep league, Trey Quinn, I guess.
Vernon Davis.
All in on Maurice Harris.
Yeah.
Yep.
Harris for sure.
Reed is my tight end start of the week. If he's going to do anything this week, it'll happen. I've got him as ranked as my tight end 9. And if you're real desperate, Davis isn't a bad option either. His volume's been ticking up the last couple of weeks, and the Buccaneers are bottom 3 against tight ends.
They got to throw to somebody.
The Buccaneers are bottom 3 against everything.
I think the only one they aren't is running backs, and they're bottom 10.
Because teams don't need to run on them. They'll just check it down or just chuck it deep.
And while the Redskins' defense is really good against the run, they're bottom 10-ish against the pass, so I would not start their defense in this matchup.
The 4th worst against quarterbacks these past
couple weeks.
Yeah, 4 weeks here.
They've been pretty bad.
Yeah, Ryan just torched him, and I expect Fitzpatrick to do the same here.
Yep.
Which we'll get to the Buccaneers, where Fitzpatrick was both Dan's and Hopper's start of the week.
He's so startable.
4 of the last 5 opponents have broken 20 fantasy points against the Redskins. All 4 of those players have thrown for at least 270 yards. 4 of the 5 quarterbacks they faced had 2+ touchdowns, and they've only had 4 picks over their last 6 games.
Yeah, this
This looks like a magic game, which means he'll throw 6 picks and be benched at halftime. But on paper, it looks good.
For me.
Are you starting Winston?
No, well, I almost have.
It's gotten that bad in Travis's league, huh?
Yeah, no, it is that bad. Winston was supposed to be my quarterback too. Travis's league, I'm desperately trying to move Julian Edelman and anybody else that's worth going to a competing team. So, because I need to tank.
All right. And before last week, the Redskins appeared to lead against opposing run games, but then Coleman and Smith just blew up on them for some reason.
I apologize for that set of the week, but you go off stats. That was a good call.
But It's a banged-up Peyton Barber. You're not starting him. It's a bad matchup. Assume that they'll play closer to their norm than what we saw
I
last week.
expect a lot of throwing. I think that's why the over-under. So I don't think there's going to be a lot of running in this game. I think Peterson gets game scripted out, which is my concern too.
Yeah, I'm trying to avoid him in spots.
Or
I have
could
him.
get game scripted out.
Redskins are bottom half of the league against opposing wide receivers, so expect a bounce-back game from Evans. I like Jackson as a wide receiver 3 against a team that has let multiple speedy receivers burn them for touchdowns this year, including Hilton, Traquan, and Torrey Smith, and Calvin Ridley. Godwin had a couple down games. I'm benching him just kind of as a precaution until we see him bounce back.
I like him more with Fitzpatrick again, but I agree with you here.
It's just kind of a risk.
I said more. Yeah, I understand.
Redskins have an awesome defense against opposing tight ends. They've allowed 0 players to break 50 yards this year, 3 total tight end touchdowns on the season. Howard is a fringe tight end one play just based on bye weeks and what's available to you, but it's a very tough matchup for him. That's all I got on that game. Let's go ahead and run to one that should be a little bit faster.
Oh,
Bills going into New York to play the Jets. Jets are favored by 7 with a 36.5 point over-under. And it's going to be the battle of backups quarterbacks.
I am really happy I do not have this game.
All right,
Kind of sad, too, because this is easy.
All right, so we'll start with the Bills here. McCoy and the defense are only things that are worth playing here. McCoy is more of a low-end RB2 flex play. And the defense is actually a decent streaming candidate this week with Josh McCown and the offense extremely banged up. There is one note here. This is more for dynasty leagues than redraft. I suppose Zay Jones has been getting the volume and the production has been increasing with 6 or more targets in 3 of his last 4 games. We don't need to get cute with them in redraft, but this is someone you can maybe trade for as we're starting to see him become more of the one in this offense.
If he continues to trend up, we could be looking at him as a year 3 breakout. Let's not forget how high we were on him coming out of the draft. So just
exactly. That's one more name to know if you're trying to rebuild or retool here. Zay Jones. As for you're not starting any quarterbacks here. As for the Jets here, a lot like the Bills, not a lot to love here. We saw McGuire out snap Crowell last week. I don't see that being the game script this week as the Jets were trying to come back against Miami, I guess. Crowell should get more of the game script favor, so if you got to play one of them, I play Crow in this matchup. It's not a good matchup, but the Bills are the worst against running backs in terms of what they do on defensively overall. They've given up 4.1 yards per carry and 9 rushing touchdowns this season, so not a terrible play for Crowell if the game script can stay that way. And I wouldn't get cute with either of the with Josh McCown here. The Bills have been a lot better against the pass, giving up the 3rd fewest points to QBs this season at 14.1 points per game. As for the podcasters here, just Chris Herndon is a guy I want to try to throw out there this week. He didn't score last week, but I think he had 60 receiving yards, which was a season high. So he hasn't killed you these last 4 games, even without the touchdown last week.
60 yards or a touchdown in all 4.
That's good. That's good for me. It's going to be Numa and Curtis as the receivers in this matchup, but the Bills are good against receivers and just the passing game as a whole, so I would not try to get cute with that. And the defense, just like the Jets, are a great play, especially if Nathan Peterman starts. That's almost a guaranteed pick 6.
Or Matt Barkley.
Or Matt Barkley. I'm sure there's pick 6 and sacks in his favor too, in his future too. So that's that for that game. We do have some questions.
All right, before we get to the next game, let's go ahead and get a couple questions here.
We'll start with, I guess Nash. Should I drop Kieran Johnson from Mike Davis in PPR? He's got Zeke, Gordon, and Mixon, by the way. So Kieran is more of his 4th option.
No.
No, I agree with that. Unless you desperately need to win this week, I would not recommend doing that.
But I'm not starting Mike Davis over Zeke, Gordon, or Mixon anyway.
No, exactly. So, and with the Carson injury, shouldn't be long term as it is. He tried to go last week and just couldn't. Carry on long term is still the better play there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's got some better matchups upcoming here, so I would stick with Carry On.
We're going to
do you catch an injury to one of the other 3, I'm way more comfortable plugging Carry On in than I would be Mike Davis outside of this week.
Most weeks.
Exactly. And then we're just going to piggyback off of Richard Lopez's question about Drake Quinn in his Dynasty League. It's a 2 QB league, but would you drop Brissett or A.J. McCarron for Drake Quinn?
McCarron, maybe.
No, not A.J. Is A.J. Yeah, A.J. McCarron. He's backing up Derek Carr, right? In Oakland?
Yeah, but he's not a long-term thing.
Yeah, no, yeah. Neither of these options are.
If McCarron couldn't stick in Buffalo, he's not worth
Yeah.
much. He'd be a injury fill-in at best.
Yeah,
Yeah,
agree with that.
I would drop McCarron for that. Brissett's been traded for as kind of an upside backup that could end up on a bridge quarterback someplace at some point in time. So
I just hope you have more options for your other two QBs, or for your other QBs
Mhm.
outside of.
He said he has Cousins. He says he has. I didn't see who his other quarterback was, but yeah, I mean McCarron. Even if I'm handcuffing Carr, I don't think is worth a lot. Carr isn't extremely injury prone. He had a fracture in his back and a leg break. Those are not injuries I'm worried about reoccurring.
no soft tissue issues you worry about more than bone breaks, even though he's got some soft ass bones.
Yeah, I don't know how you have soft bones, but Derek Carr, you got soft bones.
That's right.
Not enough milk.
More milk.
He needs to drink some milk.
He needs to drink some calcium fortified milk.
All right. Well, it looks like it is. Why does it say Card? Oh, Hopper, you're up next. Sorry, Hopper has Cardinals going to the Chiefs. Chiefs are favored by 16.5 at home with a 49.5 point over under. I think it's their first time below 50. Hopper, what's going to happen in this game, and is there a single Cardinal I can start?
So Josh Rosen, first off, if you're in an emergency situation where you need a quarterback, in some leagues I'm not starting Josh Rosen, but he did go for 252 and 2 touchdowns in the new offensive system against the 49ers. It's a plus defensive matchup, but only in an emergency situation. It's kind of like Baker Mayfield was last week, if you will, where I think he can be okay. It's not going to be amazing, but I don't think he kills you.
Mm-hmm.
David Johnson is the guy I'm really looking at starting here, though. Obviously, if you have him, you're probably starting him anyway. Chiefs allow the second most running back points in fantasy, holding just one back under 12 points. And a lot of that is because they do give up a ton of receptions and receiving yards, which is David Johnson's game. That's how he'll be used. Larry Fitzgerald is a fringe bye week option after turning the clock back his last time out. Kansas City has allowed just 2 wide receivers over 10 points in the last 7 games, however. So it's more of an emergency thing if you believe in the volume. And you don't want to get cute at tight end. So there's really just nothing here that I love at all. David Johnson is your best play. Rosen and Fitzgerald in case of emergency, and that's it.
All right, and then on to the Chiefs.
Yep, for the Chiefs, I don't know that you're really going to sit anybody on this team, which makes this pretty easy. Kareem Hunt, it's an extremely juicy matchup for him. Cardinals are the league worst against running backs. Arizona's allowed a wide receiver in each of the last 4 games over 10 points. They've progressively gotten worse as a pass defense as well, and they can be beat by speed, which is Tyreek Hill's game. If Watkins doesn't go, I'm not going to say go start Chris Conley. If Watkins goes, I think he's an okay wide receiver 2-3 start like he's been most of the season. And then you're obviously not benching Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes, Kareem Hunt, any of those guys. So Chiefs are pretty chalk.
And defense is a great start this week.
Defense is all right for a streaming option. I mean, like I said, Rosen performed decently well against the 49ers. He's not necessarily as much of a lock to throw picks as some other quarterbacks are. So I wouldn't say that it's necessarily fantastic, but if you need a streamer, you could do worse.
All right. Up next, we've got Saints traveling to Cincinnati to play the Bengals. Saints are favored by 5.5 on the road with a 54-point over-under, so expect some fireworks in this one. Starting with the Saints, Bengals are quickly turning to one of the worst teams against opposing quarterbacks. 4 of the last 6 they faced have had top 3 weeks against them, and the average stat line has been 360 yards and 2.4 touchdowns over their last 5 games. Breeze is a high-end quarterback one this week against a crumbling Bengals secondary. Continuing the trend, Bengals are also bottom 5 against opposing running backs. They've allowed 7 touchdowns in their last 4 games and over 160 total yards per game to opposing running backs. Kamara is a top 3 play, and Ingram's even an upside running back 3, low running back 2 in this matchup with a chance of getting to an end zone or maybe even getting to some garbage time if this game gets out of hand early, which the Bengals have done a couple times this season.
Yes.
Thomas is always a top-tier play, but number 1 wide receivers in general have killed the Bengals. In 4 of their last 5 games, number 1 wide receivers have broken 100 yards and or scored a touchdown, so he should be pretty safe for you this week, and he's got his standard Michael Thomas ceiling for you. If you're looking for a second receiver here, I actually prefer Smith over Bryant before he tore his Achilles. Now I really prefer Smith over Bryant. He's a wide receiver 3 with upside in this matchup.
Well, and Bryant probably wasn't going to play it beforehand. This is a completely moot point now. I'm just being petty, but he was already supposed to sit.
He's already ruled out.
It was in question when I wrote the notes, and then he was But
And then he was ruled out, and then he got hurt.
yep.
No, he's definitely.
And those came in pretty quick succession to each other.
They did.
Watson has scored in 2 straight, and the Bengals are bottom 6 defense against tight ends. So if you're looking for a stream candidate, you could do worse than Ben Watson. Last time I called that, he dudded you. So hopefully
You didn't call. Well,
I didn't start a week.
He's not the start of the week for you, though.
And Bengals have scored 20 plus in all but one game this season. They have only 9 turnovers and 16 total sacks in 8 games. I would generally avoid the Saints defense in this one. I expect a lot of points. And even if the Bengals get behind, they'll still put up enough points to kill the defense. On the Bengals side, Flacco, Cousins, and Goff all managed at least 275 yards and 2 touchdowns against the Saints over the last couple weeks. They've been second worst in the league against opposing quarterbacks this season. Dalton's an excellent streaming candidate, and he should give you a nice floor at worst. Mixon, on the flip side, definitely more of a gamble. Saints are allowing just 95 total yards to opposing backs per game, 7 touchdowns in 8 total games on the season. He probably needs a touchdown to live up to his standard Mixon expectations.
I think with Green out, he's going to get a lot more work in the passing game.
That's kind of where they need to attack it because they don't.
And to keep the Saints pass rush at bay, which has gotten a lot better these past few weeks.
Yep. So Mixon is kind of a gamble. Probably mid to low running back 2 with some upside.
Oh, I love his floor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Bernard isn't 100% set.
Don't get cute. He's hurt. He might even play. Well, he will play, but...
On the flip side, though, Boyd is a low-end wide receiver 1 and may have some upside to push him into top 5 this week. Saints defense is dead last against opposing wide receivers. They've allowed just under 2,000 yards and 15 total touchdowns in their first 8 games to wide receivers. Ross is a desperation wide receiver 4 with some serious upside given the nice matchup. And if you're real desperate, Alex Erickson, I guess.
We'll see if Boyd can handle double coverage because I'm sure he's going to see his fair share of it this week.
And then Saints are giving up just 42 yards a game and 1 total touchdown in the season to opposing tight ends. So I expect more targets for Uzama this week with no A.J. Green, but this is a really ugly matchup. Teams are just throwing to wide receivers, ignoring the tight ends and running backs against this team. So unless they shade enough coverage to Boyd to make them force the ball to Uzama, it could be an ugly game for him too. I like him as a fringe tight end 1 just based on expected targets. And then Bengals defense is in the hell nah category.
Yeah, I'm streaming Uzama this week just because, like you said, tight ends aren't really being targeted against the Saints. But I think the Bengals are going to have to because I don't think they have enough other people to throw the ball to.
That's the narrative to try to make it work. But based on the previous stats,
it just depends.
It's not there.
It's going to really depend how well, either how much the Saints shade coverage to Boyd's side, and he sees a lot more double coverage, and then if Dalton decides not to look his way. We've seen that happen this year, so.
All right. Up next is Jaguars traveling to Indy to play the Colts. Colts are favored by 3 at home. How the mighty have fallen so far this season. 46-point over-under. Is there anybody you're scared of starting on the Colts against the Jags defense who has not lived up to its expectations? And who on the Jags is worth a start against a better-than-expected Colts defense?
Yeah, we will we'll start with the Jags here as the road team per usual. It's hard to trust Bortles at this point. He hasn't thrown a multi-touchdown game since week 4. And with Fournette back and presumed healthy, I'm assuming the running game, even not with him, could turn into more of a 50-50, if not heavier volume, to kind of keep this game from getting out of hand with how good this Colts offense is. I would avoid playing Blake Bortles this week if you can. We teased what the Fournette situation can be like early on in the show. Just like Hopper, I am concerned. But if you have Fournette, you're probably playing Fournette this week. It's not the world's worst matchup. The Colts are pretty middle of the road against running backs this season. It's just going to depend, on game script, if the game can stay close, and then how much they want to test Fournette early on. This could be a game where he could be like Delvin Cook from a few weeks ago, against the Rams and get all of its work early, and they'd be benched because, they're afraid, or they decided to kind of, ease him into this offense, and then he gets more of his work later on in the game. At the end of the day, it's going to all depend on what they want to do with him. As for the other running backs in Yeldon and Hyde, I'm not playing Hyde for sure. Yeldon has potential game script upside here, though, and he should be the pass-catching back regardless of what Fournette's health is. And if the game does get out of hand, I like Yeldon as a pass-catching garbage time upside, so he does have some deeper league value to him if you want to get cute there. As for the receivers, I am not super high on anyone in this receiving core. It's been Moncrief the last couple weeks with Chark as the next best, but Westbrook and Cole have hung around. And if you look back at the games against the Colts, it's really been tight ends and pass catching backs that have killed them. Every now and then you get your high marquee guys like Hopkins and Green will have good games against them, and then you'll get guys like QD and sometimes and your big plays, but there's not a lot of volume to go around against them. And then as for the defense, I'm not playing them this week. The Colts offense has gotten a lot better, and Luck looks to be in midseason form, throwing multiple touchdowns, I think, in every game since week 2 or 3. And then I completely forgot to do my notes on the Colts. So we're gonna half-ass this a little bit.
Well, I'll give you a hint. Marlon Mack is a really good play this week.
Yeah. You're going to start Andrew Luck. Just don't expect a whole lot of upside, or just don't expect a huge game from him. Jacksonville is typically good against quarterbacks. They have struggled in recent weeks against them.
And Bouye is out again.
So he should be fine. I'm not expecting a top 3 finish, but if it happens, I wouldn't be shocked. Marlon Mack is a great play. He's looked fantastic since coming back as his offense is starting to shape form. And the offensive line has fared a lot better, and that's one way to attack the Jacksonville's defense. Without a boy in, Hilton could get some more extra love, but the Colts have gotten it done without their big-time receiver. They've used Jack Doyle, Eric Ebron, the running game, and just Marlon Mack in the passing game. I would lean Hilton as more of a wide receiver 3 this week than a high 2 with upside. And then I'm not playing any of the other receivers. Jack Doyle and Ebron are both fine plays, just given where we are at with the tight end market right now in the season. And their defense isn't a bad play either. They've lived up to expectations, and Jacksonville's offense really hasn't hit any real stride and been consistent with it. So if you need, if you're in desperate need of a defense, the Colts isn't bad this week either.
I'm definitely starting in places where I don't have much of a choice.
And that's it.
All right. Up next, we've got, I believe, where are we? Patriots going into Nashville to play the Titans. Patriots favored by 6.5, 46.5 point over under. Hopper, what do we like out of this game? I know it's a tough run defense for the Titans.
It is. So for Patriots, we're going to go ahead and start with the road team as per usual. Brady's once again a back-end quarterback 1. He's been pretty mal all season. The Titans' pass D is solid to mediocre. But you're not going to sit Tom Brady, not this week, not really any week. So go ahead and start him. Michelle should be back this week, but you should bench him. Tennessee's allowed touchdowns to a running back in just 1 week. That was 2 to Alex Collins. They're allowing just 3.4 yards per carry over the last 3 weeks. James White's not much better. He's a flex play because of his upside as a pass catcher, but Tennessee's not giving up a whole lot to running backs at all. On the flip side, Josh Gordon's my start of the week. Speed and size kill this pass defense. He's got both. The Patriots know how to exploit matchups, and he should be against Malcolm Butler, I believe.
Yes.
So, very plus for him. Julian Edelman's kind of a mid-wide receiver 3, especially if Gronk doesn't go. Slot guys have just not generally done well here, but if there's no Gronk, then he's the second option or third option, probably behind James White. And then you're not going to sit Gronk if he does play, even in a down year, because tight ends are terrible. And that's it for the Patriots. Defense would be an okay stream, but I don't necessarily love them. On to Tennessee. Mariota against New England. New England can be ran on. They're giving up over 25 points a game to opposing quarterbacks. So Mariota is a high-end streamer in the same vein as Andy Dalton is to me this week. It's a Deion Lewis revenge game. And he's a running, and to me, he's a running back too. Pats are giving up over 60 yards a game and receiving. And Henry is not to be trusted right now. So just Deion Lewis, I think you go ahead and run him out there, especially with the revenge game narrative. Even though I don't think a good revenge game has happened this year, has it?
Not to my memory.
Not really. If it has, I can't think of it.
I'm kind of sad the Bears aren't playing Oakland this year, though, because that one would be a good one.
That would be an amazing one.
Yes.
And then Corey Davis, it should be a high throwing game. So if you need him to go, go for it. But only 4 wide receivers have gone over 10 points against this Patriots team. Their 22.8 points per game is also heavily inflated by the fact that Tyreek Hill went for 32-2. Everybody else has been kind of mad against them. So Davis is an okay volume play, but I don't necessarily expect to blow up there. And then I wouldn't necessarily trust Tennessee's defense. They're kind of in that tier of mediocre this week as well.
That all you got on the Titans?
That's all I got.
All right. We're on to our last couple games here. Before the beer review, we've got Falcons traveling to Cleveland to face the Browns. Falcons favored by 4, and it is a 50.5 point over-under, so we got South teams traveling into Ohio in both locations this week. For the Falcons, we start off with an average matchup for red-hot Matt Ryan. The Browns are 15th against opposing quarterbacks, but at this point, Ryan's been putting up such crazy numbers that he is invincible. In his last 6 matchups, he's averaging 360 yards per game, and he has 17 touchdowns in his last 6 matchups, which is just under 3 per. He's a high-end quarterback one in all but the worst matchups he's facing this season. Just roll him out there.
2016 for him.
Honestly, better. Just the level, the other quarterbacks are playing
how
better.
bad, his embaying up the defense has helped him tremendously.
On the flip side, running backs have just destroyed the Browns completely, whereas quarterbacks have just been okay. 513 rushing yards, 250 yards receiving, and 9 total touchdowns in their last 4 games allowed to opposing running backs. Coleman is a high-end RB2 and could be even argued as a low running back 1 this week, and Ito Smith is a decent low running back 2, high running back 3 with his red zone usage. Both are very startable this week. Julio's just an automatic wide receiver 1. If Denzel Ward goes, though, it is a tougher matchup for him, so slightly lower his expectations. Probably more like wide receiver 5 to 7 as opposed to top 4. And then Ridley and Sanu are basically wide receiver 3s due to inconsistent target volume, and it's tough to know which one is going to get the work in any given week. So only 3 tight ends have broken 7 points against the Browns. 2 of them, though, Cook and Kelsey, broke 25 against them, so there's some ceiling, but there's also a lot of floor here, too. Hooper's a low tight end 1 in this matchup just based on attrition, but not super confident in it. On to the Browns. 6 of the last 7 quarterbacks to face the Falcons have broken 300 yards, including Alex Smith. So Mayfield should have a decent floor against the Falcons this week. Ceiling's limited, though, because Mayfield has not thrown more than 2 touchdowns in a game yet this season.
Gets done on the ground, and there's always passing yards for him. Because Browns are always playing from behind, it seems like.
So he'll get you 14 to 15 minimum this week, but he won't get you 25.
Yeah. Falcons
are on pace to give up 136 receptions and 1,030 yards just in receiving production to opposing running backs this season.
Oof.
So I like Duke Johnson as a mid-running back 2 this week with what we saw from him in the last week of the Browns offense where they're finally feeding him the ball in the passing game. Chubb's more of a low running back 2 because he'll get carries, but the Falcons are better at slowing down backs on the ground. But they do average a rushing touchdown a game, so he may fall into the end zone and save your bacon. Browns' passing offense has completely fallen apart with this receiving group. Only 4 touchdowns in the last 5 games total to their receivers, 140 yards total per game for the group. Falcons are a good fix, though. Their bottom 3 get slowing down opposing wide receivers, so I give Landry the wide receiver 2 grade just based on expected volume. I don't like anyone else in this matchup.
I agree.
And then if Njoku goes, Falcons are pretty average against opposing tight ends. So if he's good to go, I'd play him. I expect the volume to start returning back to normal here as this offense tries to figure itself out. All right, last game before we hit a beer review is Lions going into Chicago to play the Bears, where the Bears are favored by 6.5, 44.5 point over-under. Is Matthew Stafford going to be able to stay upright?
We got a small sample size look of what the Lions offense looks like post-Tate trade, and it wasn't pretty last week against the Vikings. The Bears defense are just as good against the quarterback as the Vikings were. And Mac is expected to play. Stafford could be running around there. They are normally a very good offensive line, but they struggled last week, and Stafford doesn't have his safety net. Tough schedule moving forward. Another tough game. He's got the Bears again in 2 weeks. Stafford might be droppable in redraft league, especially 12 teams.
His schedule sucks.
Yeah, so there's that option, and I'm not playing him this week. With Theo Riddick back and the matchup being difficult for Kerryon Johnson, who's also banged up, he's going on my bench as well. Riddick is very game script dependent. I'm not playing him, and Blunt shouldn't be on a roster in both fantasy and the NFL. Don't play any Lions running back if you can. Receivers, on the other hand, though, fare much better against the Bears. Big plays is what hurts them the most. I like Marvin Jones because of that, who typically is their big play receiver regardless of who else he's playing with. And Galladay is still a fine flex play, but he's been pretty quiet. He's only gone 6 for 95 on 7 targets over his last 3 games. But he gets the true number 2 tag with him now with Tate gone, and this might be one of the last few games you can play him with confidence. So throw him out there as a flex option, and you're always leaving the Titans or the Titans on the bench, and the defense isn't ready yet. Though they played better last week. As for the Bears, Trubisky's he's leveled off over the last couple weeks, but that's mainly because of what the defense has done to their opposing offenses. It's against the Jets and the Bills. Lions are pretty average against quarterbacks this season, though. They're giving up 16.6 points per game to the position, which is pretty good, but they haven't capitalized on their turnover chances.
And no Slay.
Just 3 picks. the 16 touchdowns this season. It gives Trubisky a decent upside play this week. It just depends if the offense can keep up. Because I think if the Bears get up again on them and the defense is doing its job, Trubisky may not be asked to throw a lot, and that's where he can hurt you in fantasy. As for the running game, though, Howard has fallen to the end zone 4 times over his last 3 games, and this is a pretty bad run defense by the Lions, giving up 5.5 yards per carry in the season and the second most rushing yards at just over 1,000 and 134 rushing yards per game. Howard is the fine RB2 play this week. The game scripts have been in his favor, and I can see it being in his favor in this game as well. As for Cohen, he had his worst game of the season since week 2 last week. Again, mostly game script. If the Lions can keep up with the Bears, then I expect Cohen to be right back and fine. But I also expect Cohen to get involved in this offense either way, because the Bears' offense tends to get going even more so when Cohen is involved. As for the receivers here,
yeah, I was just gonna say that's the reason I said it's dangerous, is because the question here is, can the Lions keep up with the Bears? And that's what's going to determine whether either of these teams is going to necessarily have a lot of fantasy relevance to them. I mean, and that's the debate between Howard and Cohen. If you believe that the Bears are going to outproduce the Lions by a lot, then Jordan Howard's a better play. But if you believe the Lions can keep up, then Cohen's a better play. And that's going to be the debate that I think we're having with as good as this Bears defense is for probably the rest of the season.
Yeah, and the offenses look better, but we've seen it at least the past couple games that they'll be more vanilla and just let the defense do its job when it needs to.
Yeah, and when the defense plays well, the offense doesn't have to be amazing, and the Bears defense is good enough to make it to where the offense can be vanilla.
Yeah. And then moving on to these receivers, with Allen Robinson back and presumed healthy as well, he says he's 100%. Darius Slay is out, but he's been touchdown dependent for most of the season. I think he's only had 1 game with over 10 targets, and I think he only has 1 game where he was even close to 100 yards. So if you're playing him, you're hoping for a touchdown, which may or may not happen, just depending on the game script. I see him more as a wide receiver 3. We got to see how healthy he really is and see how this offense now looks. Same goes with Gabriel and Miller. Gabriel has really come back down to earth since his big blow-up games. Hasn't done much his past 3 games. Miller has been quite the same. He's had some touchdowns to help him, but a lot of that volume and production came when Robinson was hurt as well. But there's a fun note here that Anthony Miller is on the every week touchdown trend, and last week he didn't score. So there's a decent chance per trend that he finds the end zone this week.
And trends never lie.
And trends never lie, as we have known. As for Trey Burton and the tight end core, I don't think Shaheen's going to play. I don't think he's back on the roster.
He's not activated yet.
Okay. He hasn't been great in terms of production wise, but he's scored a touchdown in 4 of his last 5 games. And just a tight end option again, like usual, is just very, very low and slim pickings to pick from. Basically, what you're going to get from Burton, what we've seen over these last 4 games, is 3 for 30 and a touchdown. 3 for 30 and a potential touchdown. The yards haven't been there along with the targets, but again, game script. And of course, you were playing the Bears defense. There's no way you're sitting them after what we've seen the last couple weeks. Lions offense is better, but they didn't show much last week.
That all we got?
That's all we got.
All right. We got to go ahead and recap what we're fueling us today.
Beer review.
All right, Hopper, why don't you kick us off first from the St. Louis studio?
All right, from the St. Louis branch, just as a reminder, I was drinking a 2017 Goose Island Bourbon County that had been aged for a year. And kind of the same thing that I got out of it the last few times that I had it also. You get a lot of the bourbon flavor. You get a bit of the burn, a lot of that vanilla, though. But the stout comes through with the dark chocolate on the back end. It's the original bourbon barrel aged stout. It's a very, very solid one. It's not the best one I've had. It's still very, very good. And it's kind of a unicorn because it does only release once a year. So if you have the opportunity to grab it, I definitely recommend it. It is a solid bourbon barrel aged stout.
Yeah, they released it, I believe, anywhere within about...
It's Black Friday most of the time.
It's Black Friday for most liquor stores.
It comes out Black Friday, but it's generally within probably about 1,000 miles of Chicago. You can probably get it.
Yep, about 1,000-mile radius, and depending on, they release multiple different types too. This is just a straight bourbon barrel aged stout, but if you like bourbon, this is a lot of bourbon notes with just a bit of dark chocolate for a stouty type finish.
And it's bourbon front, which I kind of like, which is different from a lot of the bourbon barrels, which tend to be bourbon backs.
Yep, or just bourbon all the way through, but it is very bourbon front, very stout back. You're absolutely right about that.
All right, and then here in the Illinois branch, we have Parker from Triptych Brewing. What do you think of the porter?
I like it. It's not my favorite porter. Smooth, obviously smooth because it's a porter. It's gonna be smooth on the front. The chocolate does stick out. It sticks a little bit more for me on the back end. You can definitely taste the mocha notes that they're using in this and the rich, creamy flavor for it.
Yeah, it kind of almost melts into dark chocolate on your mouth.
Yeah, they said there's some bitterness on per their website when they described it. They'll taste the bitterness more in the back end, and I don't taste it quite as much. But that can be more noted to just the chocolate in general. That's where the dark chocolate comes from.
I kind of get a dark chocolate, which is generally considered kind of bitter, so I guess that's what it is. I don't tend to think of dark chocolate as bitter, but
yeah.
So yeah, I like it a lot. It's pretty no nonsense, and not as weird as a lot of the Triptych brews are. Yeah, but
It really does a lot of flavorful things, and dark chocolate's more of a stout flavor, so I can see why it's not your favorite porter, because porters are usually nuttier, not chocolatier.
Yeah, and they're like, this drinks more of like a creamy stout than it does
if you didn't tell me this was a porter, I would have guessed stout.
I would have guessed definitely a milk stout.
So maybe they're lying to us too.
No, there's not a lot of difference, between porters and stouts either.
There isn't, but
there's
a slight taste difference that I can usually pick up, but this one does taste more like a stout to me.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to the afternoon games, and you guys are going to get a lot of hopper time. So enjoy these next three
Dan
games.
Time. Sorry,
Dan is done.
Dan is done, and it's all me for a while.
For the next 3 games, he gets all 3 of the afternoon games just due to the way he scheduled it. So congratulations, Hopper.
This is not due to the way I scheduled it. This is the NFL's fault because they flexed.
All right, kicking us off first is Dolphins. Going ahead and playing the Packers here. Packers are favored by 9.5 with a 47.5 point over-under. What do you expect to happen up in the Bay this weekend?
Well, starting with the Dolphins, Osweiler. It's another shootout, so volume should be there, but I'm very much not a fan of starting Brock Osweiler pretty much ever. He's a back-end streamer despite Green Bay allowing over 23 points per game. It's Brock Osweiler. I don't love him. As for the running backs, Green Bay has given up over 20 points the last 2 weeks to Gurley and James White, and double digits in each of the last 4 games. Kenyon Drake's a solid running back, too, for me. With his receiving upside. But Frank Gore is also not somebody to sleep on if you're desperate. They are allowing 4.2 yards per carry on the ground, they being Green Bay. And Frank Gore has seen double-digit touches every week since week 3. So if you're looking for an emergency fill-in that's going to give you some floor, Frank Gore's an okay go there. And then I trust nothing else about this team. If I'm making a choice on pass catchers, it is going to be Kenny Stills, Josh Gordon, and Marquise Goodwin, both are speed guys. And they went for over 100 yards in the last 2 weeks against the Packers. So Kenny Stills does have an outside shot at being startable, but I don't really want to trust anything on the Dolphins team for the most part. And as for the Packers, you're starting Rodgers, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and Devontae Adams, although Adams will draw a tough matchup against Xavier Howard. Secondary wide receivers do beat up the Dolphins, though, so I do love MVS this week. Aaron Jones is another guy that I like a lot this week. I do think the Packers could pull out ahead of this one, so we'll regain script favors Jones. The Dolphins are allowing 4.6 yards per carry on the ground, the 6th most points to fantasy running backs in the league, and Jones has gone for over 75 yards in each of the last 2 weeks. So MVS and Aaron Jones, I think, are the real 2+ plays this week. And then Jimmy Graham, 3 of his last 4 weeks have been good. I expect there's no way that you can sit him. Miami has given up double-digit tight end games in 2 of the last 3 weeks, so he should be a solidly placed tight end 1. The Packers' defense isn't a bad stream either against Brock Osweiler. There's always the chance for picks against him.
Yeah,
and that's all I got.
I know a couple places I'm definitely running the Packers out, unfortunately. It's not looking pretty, but I will be risking it.
I like him in DFS for sure.
I like MVS and Aaron Jones at DFS a lot because I guarantee you they're not going to be expensive.
I love them both. The only issue is they are very, very, very popular GPP plays this week, so quite highly going to be owned in a lot of
GPP Green Bay Packer.
No, Guarantee prize pools. So it's your bigger tournament plays as well.
I do not know nearly enough about DFS compared to you
Yeah.
guys. All right. Chargers are going into Oakland to face the Raiders. Chargers are favored by 9.5 on the road with a 49.5 point over-under. Is there anybody you can start on the Raiders, and who is sitting on the Chargers side?
So for the Chargers, this is kind of what we talked about last week with the Bears and the Bills, too. To where there's a team that's just so decidedly better than the other team that the game script says you probably shouldn't start them, or a lot of them. And that's what the Chargers are this week. So Rivers, he is playing the Raiders. It's not going to be a blow-up game because of that. They're going to get out ahead, and they're going to be able to coast. So I do think he is a back-end quarterback one against a horror defense, but it's not going to be the blow-up that this looks like on paper. Melvin Gordon, obviously you're going to start your studs, and he does have a little bit more insulation because they will just stay on the ground and try to grind it out. However, when the Chargers are up by more than a touchdown, that's when Austin Eckler starts to get work and starts to do work. Austin Eckler is a guy who I do like a lot as a flex play this week, and it's because of game script. He has just 67 yards when games are within a touchdown for the Chargers, but 250 plus when the Chargers win by a touchdown or more. His yards per carry also jumps by 5 yards per carry when the Chargers win by a touchdown or more. So this is a game script where I'm very comfortable running Austin Eckler out there and Melvin Gordon. Phillip Rivers is not going to be a blow up. And as far as the wide receivers go, I'm not starting anybody other than Keenan Allen because I do not think that the Chargers are going to have to pass a whole lot. And defense is a yes.
Yes to the defense.
I don't mind playing Tyrell as a flex play because he'll get his 1 or 2 deep shots in this game.
Yeah, you're going
if
for
you need
a home
boom
run.
bust, if you need a boom bust, and trust me, I'm playing Tyrell in places.
Home run with Tyrell.
Yeah.
It's definitely not going to be volume this week.
Oh God, it's never volume for either of the Williams
Yep.
receivers.
Yeah, Williams has back-to-back weeks where he's one catch for a touchdown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As for the Raiders, Doug Martin and Jalen Richard both are emergency flex plays. The Chargers have given up 22.7 total points to running backs. Richard does tend to get targeted when they're playing from behind, and Doug Martin has actually been relatively efficient compared to his last couple of years. So you're in need of an emergency start. Either one of those guys should do you. Jared Cook had just 2 points the last time these two teams met, so I'm lukewarm on him for this week. And as for the wide receivers, Bryant has had a solid game against the Chargers. This is his only solid game this year. It's a Hail Mary boom bust play. Hill and Woods both did go off against the Chargers, and I think Bryant had 92 yards last time out. So Martavis Bryant probably going to be my dart throw here. And that's about it. I mean, there's nobody on the Raiders I love starting but Bryant, Cook, and then the 2 running backs if you're desperate.
Yep. Pretty much. I hate the
And
Raiders.
that's me really stretching to find Raiders that are possibly
Yeah,
startable.
they're right up there with the Bills and Jazz without much to know.
And they're trying to get worse
for.
by the minute.
Yep.
All right. One last Hopper game here. Seahawks traveling to LA to play the Rams. Rams favored by 9.5, which feels a little heavy to me, considering they played pretty close in Seattle just a few weeks ago.
Feels pretty heavy to me also.
50 point.
I think the Seahawks cover this.
All right. And if the over-under is 50, who do you like from both the Seahawks and the Rams in Week 10?
I love Russell Wilson this week, so start your studs. 14 touchdowns, just 2 interceptions over the last 4 weeks. He's now throwing front for a ton of yardage. The Rams' pass defense hasn't been great since they last believed. A ton of yardage in this game. Should be very high scoring. As far as running backs, it's going to depend on what we talk about Sunday with Chris Carson. Whichever one starts, I like him as a running back too. If Carson can't go, that's Mike Davis. If Carson can go, that's Chris Carson. Seattle's been running the ball like crazy. They've had 30 or more attempts every week since week 2. And the Rams' run defense is a lot better on paper than it is in reality. So I would be willing to start either of those two, but it's going to depend on if Carson can play or not. As for the wide receivers, Lockett and Baldwin both should be started this week. The Rams have allowed 5 100-plus wide receivers in just 4 weeks, as well as a 98-yard wide receiver in that time span, and that was Tyler Lockett. So I do think the pass catchers in this game, including Nick Vannett as well, should go ahead and be started. Nick Vannett's probably my top streaming tight end this week. Watson and Kittle both put up double-digit games, and Vannett's all 8 targets. So I'm saying you start Lockett, Baldwin, Vannett, and then the running back, and obviously Russell Wilson, as this game should be a shootout, and I think all of those guys get decent work and put up a decent day.
All right. End of the Rams.
Yeah. Oh, and stay away from the Seahawks defense in this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. As for the Rams, you're going to start all of them. There's no reason not to. Carl Rosen and Prescott are the only quarterbacks that this team is in the Seahawks have held in check. Gurley's an absolute stud that he doesn't even need to talk about. Well, wide receiver pick this week to be the top option is Cooper Kupp, based on the fact that slot receivers have done better against the Seahawks. But as always, the other two are going to get theirs, and they're not going to dodge you at all, that being Cooks and Woods. And there's no reason to get cute with the tight ends here. The defense I would also tend to shy away from. This is one of the few week. That was me hitting the switch on my mic, by the way. But this is one of the few games this week where I think that you can run out most offensive players and be okay with it.
Agreed. I like that game a lot. I'll be having way too many players going in it, so I'm going to be freaking out while we're at the hockey game. All right, I got last two games here as we go to Sunday and Monday night. Sunday night, we have the Cowboys going to Philadelphia facing the Eagles. It's a 43-point over-under. Eagles favored by 7 at home. Starting on the Cowboys side, Eagles' pass defense is starting to trend in the right direction here. They've allowed an average of 284 yards and just 1 touchdown a game over their last 4. So Dak is a sit in a bad matchup for one quarterback leagues, and he's not reliable enough with his legs right now for you to roll him out there in matchups where you're not trusting him to go out and possibly throw for 250 yards and a touchdown to pair with his rushing. Eagles are also a top 3 run defense, so you're not going to sit Zeke, but I'm actually saying he's a running back 2 in this matchup. Eagles have held most opposing running backs in check, and on top of it, the Cowboys are dealing with multiple offensive line injuries. They're missing 2 starting offensive linemen right now. I really don't like Zeke this week. You can't sit him, I don't think, unless you have just an absolutely star-studded lineup, but it's ugly. I'm not happy with it. Outside wide receivers have done okay against the Eagles. I don't think Cooper can really be anything more than a wide receiver 3 here. I think Dak's gonna be running for his life trying to get the ball out to him for the entire game. But something I noted in Week 9, the 8 targets that Cooper saw were tied for the second most of any Cowboys wide receiver in a game this year. And on top of it, he had the 4th most yardage already in just his first game with the Cowboys. So that is a good sign. This is just not the best matchup for him. Consider him a wide receiver 3 and you're hoping for a touchdown. Beasley's a floor wide receiver 4 if you missed out on Humphreys or a similar type, or Harris or another floor type, slot type receiver. Eagles defense is top 10 against tight ends. Cowboys don't have a true starting tight end. You pass here on your Ricos or your
you wouldn't
Jarwins
play him no
or
matter
Schultz.
what.
On to the Eagles side, Dallas's defense is also above average against opposing quarterbacks, so lower those expectations for Wentz. There hasn't been a single quarterback this season that's hit 23 fantasy points against the Cowboys, and that's with quarterbacks scoring way, way up this year. So Wentz is more of a back-end quarterback 1 with some nice floor, but probably not a ton of ceiling.
This game's going to be close, I think.
It could be. Sean Lee is out, though. Cowboys' run defense does take a hit for it. The issue is they have 3 running backs who split work, and I have no idea which one's going to get the majority of the volume, Clement, Smallwood, or Adams. If I'm picking one, Smallwood as a low running back 3. Though I think if I'm picking one to score, I'm betting on Adams.
I wouldn't play either of them, either 3 of them.
I ideally wouldn't touch either of them.
If you can avoid 2.
If I'm picking one of the 3, it's Smallwood, I guess.
Yeah.
This season, only 5 wide receivers have hit 10-plus against the Cowboys, but one of them, and the one who scored the most points against the Cowboys, is now on the Eagles, and that is Golden Tate. He dunked him last time they met up when he was on the Lions for 132 yards and 2 touchdowns. So I'm assuming if the coach for the Eagles has any brains whatsoever, he's going to be like, you do exactly what you did against the Cowboys last time. So I think you start him as a wide receiver 2. Jeffrey's an auto wide receiver 2 with his floor, but he's a bit wobbly in this matchup. It's a tough matchup for opposing wide receivers, and Aguilar I want nothing to do with until we figure out what his role looks like now that they've added Golden Tate.
I'm interested to see what they do with both Tate and Aguilar, if they're going to intertwine them. They haven't been real heads, or they haven't said what they want to do with either of them in terms of who's going to play inside and outside. I'm assuming it's going to be more just a lot of inside and out for both of them.
Yeah, I don't get the Tate trade looking at it more. It's confusing. And then Ertz is an auto start. This is an average tight end matchup. You don't sweat it. It's Ertz. And then we'll wrap it up here with Monday night where the Giants go to the 49ers. Yes, that is our Monday night matchup.
Ooh, praise the Lord.
49ers favored by 3. It's a 43.5 point over-under.
Niners are favored.
The Giants are that bad.
Oh, man, that's great.
I don't like Manning. 49ers have actually been better at opposing limiting quarterbacks over the last 5 weeks. 4 of their last 5 opposing quarterbacks have been below the average fantasy score of 18.6. The only one who would beat it was Rodgers in his crazy comeback. Everyone else has been 18.3 or below, so it's not a great matchup for Manning, who's been underperforming all year long. Barkley's a top 5 to 6 play. 49ers have been better against running backs as of late, but the good backs they face, which is Kareem Hunt, Melvin Gordon, Todd Gurley, and David Johnson twice, have scored a minimum of 12 against the 49ers in half PPR. A couple of them broke 25.
That's his floor.
You're starting Barkley. As for wide receivers, though, who see 10-plus targets, their average fantasy score is 17.74 fantasy points. I assume Odell will probably get 10 targets in this game, making him a top 5 play for you this week. On the flip side, Shepard is kind of his usual wide receiver 3 sell if you're hoping for a couple big plays or a touchdown. But there's a lot of risk, too. He could dud you. So you're starting him. It's more of a desperation play. You're probably having to start Ingram if you have him, but he should be safe in this matchup as the good tight ends like Kelsey, Rudolph, and Graham that they've faced, the only really good 3 tight ends they've placed, all either topped 100 yards or scored against them this season. So I like Ingram. He's probably a top 7-8 play for you this week. Wrapping it up with the 49ers here. I don't expect a repeat performance from Nick Mullins. This is an okay matchup against an average Giants pass defense. So he's startable in a 2-quarterback situation. Don't get cute in one. Don't even think about it. Giants could absolutely run on, though. They have 8 running back touchdowns load over their last 5 games, and they're giving up, I believe, when I checked, it was 140 yards a game total to the position. Oof. Matt Breida is an RB2 this week, and Morris is an RB4. You're hoping falls in the end zone if you're desperate. For the defense, it's speed guys that kill them. Over the last 6 weeks, Will Fuller, Curtis Samuel, and Marvin Hall have combined for 4 deep touchdowns over the last 6 weeks. I'm sure some of you guys are wondering who the hell Marvin Hall is.
The Falcons' number 4 receiver.
Yep, their speed guy. So I like Goodwin as an upside wide receiver 3 here with a decent shot at a deep touchdown. Garcon is a wide receiver 4 for me, not trying to chase Kendrick Bourne or Richie James's points from last week. Kittle's an elite top 5 tight end every single week. It's a below average matchup for him, but he's still top 5 no matter what. Kittle has entered the elite position.
Yeah, he should play too. Even with the questionable tag, he
has kicked Gronk off the tower.
He's he didn't practice at all this week with actual pads on. He's been wearing.
They have one more day of practice.
Yeah, so bear that in mind.
Keep an eye on Saturday. We'll update you Sunday. Check out the YouTube show.
Yep.
Just as a reminder, as we wrap up here, we are back 10:30 in the morning to go ahead and cover you guys on YouTube. We'll answer all your questions, get you ready to win your week. All 3 of us will be there. We got Dan Thury.
Yeah, Thury BFF.
Actually, will Dan Thury be there this week?
We're going to the game Sunday.
Cool. Dan Thury will be there. Christopher Hopper will be there from St. Louis.
At Hot BFF with 2 Ps. Have a good weekend, and we'll see you Sunday morning.
And I am at Nick Sparts. Remember to follow the show at BeerFueledFF on Twitter, Instagram, and Untapped. Good luck in Week 10, guys, and we'll catch you guys next time on Beer Fueled Fantasy Football.
You got it.
He was there. Joined us.
See ya.
Later.